everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather, and today on this cozy, snowy Super Bowl Sunday, I thought I would get excited not about American football, but about the classics that I would like to read this year. Now, if you saw my reading plans for the year video, you will know that I'm not setting myself too many goals or things that I must do this year, because this year is going to be full of a lot of changes and it's already been quite stressful. So I'm trying not to put too much pressure on my reading life. So I won't be disappointed if I don't get to any of these books, but these are all ones that I'm really excited about reading, which means that hopefully I will read them soon. So the first book that I would love to read this year is Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. I have been meaning to read this for years and years and years. What really kicked me into gear was watching some of the television series from 2018, I think, when I was on a plane flying home from England. God, those were the days, weren't they? And so I've been meaning to watch it, especially now that it's available on Amazon Prime, but I promised myself that I would read the book first. Plus, it is a Victorian novel set during the Regency, two of my favorite eras. And I don't know too much about it except that it follows Becky Sharp and her quest to work her way into a better class of life for herself at any cost and in any way that she can. For a lot of these, I don't want to know a lot of the plots, so that's about all I want to know about Vanity Fair before I go into it. But I have heard from some people that it is not as intimidating as it looks and that it actually can be read quite quickly, considering the massive nature of this book. So I'm excited. I'm hoping to get to it maybe this spring or this summer. A set of books that I really want to get to this year are Dr. Thorne and The Small House at Allington, both by Anthony Trollope. I read The Warden in October, and I just read the Barchester Towers last month. And these are all part of the Barchester Chronicles. I think that's the name of the series. It's his Barsetshire series, anyway. And again, I've been meaning to watch the television series of Dr. Thorne for ages. So now I'm finally up to reading Dr. Thorne. I may read this next month, in fact, because I'm really, really excited. And The Small House at Allington, I know, is one of Marissa of Blatantly Bookish's favorite books of 2021. However, it is book 5, so I do have to track down a copy of book 4 before I can go on to read this once I've finished Dr. Thorne. But I'm really excited to see where both of these take the characters that we met in Barchester Towers. If at all, they might follow a completely new set of characters that also live within Barsetshire, with our old familiars making the odd appearance. I don't know, I'll find out. Another book that I really want to get to this year is Kennelworth by Sir Walter Scott. I have not read any Sir Walter Scott since my days in university, so I would really like to read something of his sometime that wasn't 10 years ago. And this is a book, when was this published? 1821. So it's sort of a Regency book. It's in that strange in-between period, in between Regency and Victorian. But anyway, Sir Walter Scott is partly a Regency author. And this takes place during the Tudor period, and it circles around Robert Dudley and Queen Elizabeth I, another of my passionate areas. Plus, I am also very anxious to listen to the opera that Donizetti wrote called Il Castello di Kenilworth, which is based on the same novel. It's not technically part of Donizetti's Tudor trilogy of operas, which I have seen all of. No, I have not seen Roberto Devereux yet. But it's not part of that trilogy nonetheless. But I feel like I should listen to it because I feel like it's an underrepresented opera. And if I like the novel, then perhaps I can spread the word. Another book I really want to read this year is The Bose Stratagem by George Farquhar. And this is an 18th century play. When precisely was it written? Will you tell us? It doesn't say exactly, but the early 1700s anyway. And as far as I know, it's a romantic comedy. I thought it took place closer to the Georgian era, but, well, I mean, I suppose that is sort of Georgian. Depends how close to 1707 they are. Anyway, this is not a history video. This is about the plays I want to read. But it is some sort of a rom-com where young men are trying to woo a variety of young women and various obstacles are thrown in their way. You've seen rom-coms before, you know how they work. This one just happens to be done with 18th century Moors, which I think could be really fun. There was also a National Theatre live production of this play a few years ago. I don't remember exactly how long ago, but I missed it. I couldn't make it to a screening. So I'm hoping to get something of the effect from reading the play instead. Another of my ambitious picks for the year is to try to read the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. I hadn't been particularly interested in this. It was something that I felt that I should read at some point, but it had never struck me as something I need to read right away. Until lately. Lately it just seems to be following me everywhere, be it having A Knight's Tale constantly on television, or seeing a video whose name I can't remember, but I will link it down below, where a medieval historian rates a variety of medieval films in terms of their accuracy. And A Knight's Tale was one of them, and so she mentioned what the actual Canterbury Tales are like in order to compare what the film was doing with some of those premises. And then I found this edition at my library book sale this past summer, which is a line-by-line translation published by Barron's, who publish a lot of great study materials here in the US. I don't know if it says exactly who translated it. Vincent Hopper of NYU. And it's really cool. It has the original and then the translated text right underneath. So it should make for fairly easy reading in that sense. And yeah, so this I might tackle in April, since I read somewhere that this starts in April. So I thought that could be a good time. One of my spring break projects. I would also like to read An Old-Fashioned Girl by Louisa May Alcott, as I haven't read any Louisa May Alcott for a couple of years. So I'm intrigued to see where this standalone of hers goes. I loved Little Women when I read it in high school. I loved the film adaptation, although I grant you that it picks and chooses what to highlight from the book. However, I did not love Little Men when I read it about 2 years ago. So I'm hoping this one will help to settle me one way or the other. Plus, I remember hearing Megan of Megan the Story Girl talking about it in one of her videos last year or the year before, I don't remember. But so I'm intrigued to read it and then talk about it with her. Another book recommended by Megan was Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster, which I had never heard of before she read it. I believe she read it with Kate Howe and possibly some other booktubers as well. And then I found this copy at another library book sale in August. And this is about a young woman who is an orphan, I believe, but she wants to go to college. And suddenly this mysterious benefactor is willing to pay for her higher education on the condition that she never finds out who he is. And naturally she is very grateful and she's very curious about who this man could be. So I believe she starts to write him anonymous letters and things develop from there. So I'm intrigued to see where this goes and what I think of it. I would also love to read some more Fanny Burney books this year. I read Evelina when I was in university, and I read some Mariah Edgeworth for Jane Austen July 2020, but I haven't read any other Fanny Burney books recently. So I found out that both Camilla and Cecilia are available for free on Kindle, so I downloaded both of them, so they are waiting for me whenever I pick them up. So those may be one of my Jane Austen July picks. I could decide to read them at any other point during the year. One of them is quite long, so I might decide to read the shorter of the two first, but I can't remember which one that is off the top of my head. Another book I would love to read at some point is Daniel Duranda by George Eliot, as I haven't read any George Eliot this year, and I've heard conflicting things about starting with Middlemarch. Some people say it's absolutely fantastic, read it right away. Other people say, don't start with that one, it will put you off George Eliot, start with something else. So Daniel Duranda has fascinated me for years anyway. I think it was one of the first books that I marked on Goodreads in 2012, mainly because of the adaptation with Romola Gary. I love Romola Gary. Plus, I found out recently that there's also a plotline that deals with Judaism in Victorian England, which I think would be fascinating to learn more about, since you don't really hear much about that area of Victorian England, since mainstream Victorian society was very much Christian. So Marissa and I had talked about buddy reading this, but I don't know. We could decide to buddy read it together. I could get impatient and read it anyway. We shall see, but I would like to get to this sooner rather than later. Other books that I don't have physical copies of are by Berwyn Banks and Garth Owen by Alan Rain. And honestly, I know nothing about the plots of these books, but I know they come highly recommended from Lucy the Reader, otherwise known as Lucy Powery. And they are late Victorian, I believe they bleed into the Edwardian, novels by a Welsh author, which I think would be really exciting as I haven't read many Welsh authors, period. And yeah, so I would love to get to one of these. They are both available through my library. And then the last book that I would love to read, especially for Victober, but I can't find a copy of anywhere, at least not a free one, is Rebecca and Rowena, also by Thackeray. And this is Thackeray's response to, or possibly continuation of, Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. And based on the title, I would presume that it's looking at the two love interests of that novel, Rebecca, daughter of Isaac of York, and Rowena, the Saxon noblewoman. I think it would be so cool to get what is essentially Victorian fan fiction of a medieval Regency historical romance. It's the most complicated literary sentence I've ever said, but it sounds fantastic. But I would either have to hunt down a used copy or pay for a Kindle edition, and I can't decide which would be better. So if you all have any suggestions, please let me know down below, but I will be puzzling that out sometime between now and October. So those are some of the books that I would love to get to this year. Again, I'm not calling myself a failure if I don't get to these and other books call to me between now and then. But let me know down below if you have loved any of these and if you recommend that they should definitely stay towards the top of my priority list. Let me know if you have any other suggestions of other classics that you think I would love. And if I haven't read them, I will add them to my ever-growing TBR list. Until next time, everyone, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye, everyone.